In the bustling Ibo town of Ensud, the air was never quiet. Traders shouted prices, Akba sellers sang their morning songs, and gossip floated through the air like smoke from a burning pot. Ensud was a place where everyone knew everyone, and everyone's story was half rumor, half truth. Beneath its laughter and chaos, it was a town that watched, listened, and judged. In the center of all that noise lived Chinonso, a man who looked like he was carved by angels. If you saw him, you would say, "Chank, isi Ania," for truly, God took his time. Tall like a palm tree, shoulders broad like a yam barn, his voice deep and calm like the evening drum. He owned several shops in Ensud Market, wines, electronics, and provisions, and his success made him shine brighter than any star in town. People called him Odogwu Ensud, the man whose money never finished. He was kind but quiet, focused on his business. Yet every woman in town had her eyes on him. Young girls dreamed about him, widows prayed for him, and even married women secretly imagined what life with him would feel like. Chinonso was the kind of man that made the market stand still when he walked past. Among the many women who dreamed of Chinonso was Chisom, the gentle pharmacist whose beauty glowed behind her glasses. Each time he passed her shop, her heart skipped like a faulty generator. She would plan what to say, "Good afternoon, Sir Chinonso," but when the moment came, her voice vanished. Her hands trembled, her throat locked, and she would just smile foolishly until he was gone. Then there was Aluchi, Chisom's closest friend, though she hid her own obsession better. In secret, she kept a red diary where every page began with, "Dear husband." She wrote stories of how Chinonso proposed to her, the songs they danced to at their wedding, and the names of their unborn children. At night, she hugged her teddy bear named Nonso, whispering his name as though he could hear her through the wind. Not far from the market lived Amarachi, a woman whose beauty was both gift and weapon. Her walk alone could make a man forget his mother's name. She was known for her life on the dark side of town, but in her mind, Chinonso was her destiny. "Which man fit resist me?" she bragged to her fellow night crawlers. "Once I pass in front of his shop, he go follow me like fly way see sugar." By the time the sun rose over Ensud, half the women in the market were already married to Chinonso in their minds. Mama Ejima, the Akba seller, swore he winked at her once. Ngozi, the tailor, said he proposed to her in a dream. Even the women who roasted corn by the roadside said that Chinonso once smiled at them, and that was enough proof of destiny. The man was unknowingly surrounded by invisible wives. Chinonso's only worker, Ifani, was the complete opposite of his boss. If Chinonso was quiet and disciplined, Ifani was loud and restless. He had the ears of a bat and the mouth of a parrot. No secret in Ensud escaped him. If two people quarreled, Ifani was the first to arrive, adding pepper to the fire. When something happened in one corner of the market, he would spread it to the other side before the sun blinked twice. And so, under the golden sky of Ensud, the stage was set, a man too fine for his own peace, a market full of dreamers, and a boy whose tongue would soon light a fire that no one could quench. The morning sun poured gold over Ensud Market. Women spread their goods under bright umbrellas, akpa steaming, palm oil glistening, and fresh peppers glowing like rubies. Yet amid the lively trading, tongues wagged. "Did you hear what Chinonso did?" whispered Mama Ejima to Ngozi the tailor. "I heard he now eats with a pot. They said he even talks to it," Ngozi replied, slicing her thread with her teeth. The market buzzed not with buyers, but with curiosity. The pot had become the center of every gossip, more popular than cassava or akba. While gossip brewed, Chinonso walked through the streets like a man at peace. His white kaftan flowed with dignity. Children ran after him shouting, "Pot husband, pot husband." He only smiled, waving gently as though blessing them. "Let them talk," he told his friend Ifani. "I know what I carry." He was no longer the proud man he once was. Something in him had softened, like iron melted by fire. At sunset, Chinonso sat on his veranda, the pot beside him on a small stool. A soft breeze carried the smell of roasted corn and evening dew. He dipped his spoon into the pot and ate slowly. When he finished, he whispered, "Thank you." And somewhere deep inside, a faint hum answered, like a spirit sigh carried by the wind. Was the pot alive, or was his soul hearing what others could not? Chisholm, the shy pharmacist, couldn't hold her curiosity anymore. She came one afternoon holding a small gift, a loaf of bread. "Chinonso, I brought this for you," she said softly. He welcomed her kindly, setting the bread beside the pot. As they talked, the pot trembled slightly, its lid clicking. Chisholm's eyes widened. "Did you see that?" she whispered. "Don't fear," Chinonso replied calmly. "Some things in this world are not for mockery, but for meaning." She left that day confused, but also strangely touched. By the next week, gossip had become rumor, and rumor had become judgment. In beer parlors and barbershops, men laughed loud. "Chinonso don craze. Imagine a fine man way merry pot." In Ensued, mockery spreads faster than harmattan fire. Children sang songs about him. Even preachers used his name as example of spiritual blindness. Still, Chinonso remained calm. When a man carries mystery, he told himself, only time can interpret it. That night, Chinonso dreamed of a glowing woman standing in a river of light. Her voice was like drums and wind together. "Do not fear the shame, Chinonso," she said. "Those who laugh today will bow tomorrow. Keep your pot pure, for inside it lies the spirit of your destiny." He woke before dawn, drenched in sweat, his heart steady but strong. The next morning, thunder rolled across Ensued, though the sky was clear. The pot on his table vibrated softly, and a faint crack appeared on its side, like lightning in clay. Chinonso touched it gently. "So it begins," he whispered. Outside, the gossip grew louder. Inside, something sacred was waking. The dry season had painted Ensued brown. Dust danced in the air like restless spirits. As Chinonso's calm deepened, envy began to burn in others. "How can he walk about like a saint?" Amarachi sneered one evening at Mama Ejima's shop. "If his pot truly speaks, let it make him rich again." The women laughed, their eyes glinting. But envy is like a small coal. It only takes one breeze to become a wildfire. Ifani, Chinonso's talkative sales boy, had grown impatient. He missed the busy days of big customers and loud coins. When Amarachi approached him secretly behind the market fence, he listened. "I will pay you," she whispered, "if you can tell me what Chinonso hides in that pot." "Just to look inside small?" he asked. "Just to look," she smiled. That night, he crept into Chinonso's house like a rat chasing spilled Gary. Moonlight fell across the veranda. The pot sat quietly on its stool, glowing faintly as though breathing. Ifani lifted the lid with trembling hands, and a burst of cold air hit his face like a slap. Inside the pot was not emptiness. He saw something move, something like light in the shape of a woman, her eyes burning with calm fire. He screamed. The pot rattled. Chinonso woke instantly. "What have you done?" Chinonso shouted, grabbing the pot with fear and anger. "I just wanted to see." "You have seen what even I have not looked upon." The boy ran into the night, never to return. By morning, the market was chaos. Ifani's voice had spread the story like dust in harmattan wind. "There's a woman living inside the pot. I saw her, a spirit woman." Every trader, every child, every preacher added their own flavor to the tale. By noon, the governor's wife had heard it too. By evening, so had the governor himself, as Udo of Ensued. "Summon this Chinonso," the governor said. "No man shall keep a spirit in this land." Guards arrived the next morning, carrying wooden staffs. "Chinonso of Ensued," they declared. "His Excellency demands your presence." The whole town followed as he walked calmly behind them, the pot in his arms. Children watched, wide-eyed. Elders shook their heads. Some whispered madness, others murmured mystery. He entered the governor's compound, where justice and fear shared the same seat. The courtyard was filled with chiefs, priests, and onlookers. The governor sat beneath a great umbrella, gold on his cap, judgment in his eyes. "Chinonso," he said sternly, They say you live with a spirit in a pot. Speak the truth before we break it. Chinonso bowed slightly. Your Excellency, he said softly, this pot is not a cage but a covenant. It chose me when men abandoned me. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Amarachi smirked in the corner. Let the pot speak then, the governor demanded. Chinonso nodded slowly. If the spirit wills, it will. Amarachi stepped forward boldly. If you will not open it, then I will, she cried. Before anyone could stop her, she snatched the pot and lifted the lid. A sudden blast of wind tore through the courtyard. Dust, light, and sound merged into one terrifying cry. The pot exploded in white fire. Amarachi screamed, falling backward as her clothes caught a strange glow. Not fire but shame. She lay trembling, unable to speak, her voice stolen. The wind died. The pot sat whole again, quiet, unbroken. The crowd was silent, the governor frozen in awe. Chinonso stood beside the pot, his eyes glowing faintly with tears and power. Now you see, he said, that not all spirits are for harm, some are sent to test hearts. The governor bowed his head slightly. Take it home, he said quietly, but know this ensued watches. Chinonso walked away slowly, the pot in his arms, the air thick with reverence. But deep within, something was changing. The spirit inside had been awakened, and her mission was not yet done. The courtyard of Umuoma stood in breathless stillness. Dust hung in the air like fine mist, and the smell of smoke still drifted from the ruins. Chinonso held the clay pot to his chest, his face glowing faintly under the last golden light of dusk. Around him, no one dared to speak. Even the goats that had mocked him earlier were quiet, as if the ancestors had commanded silence. Amarachi knelt in the dust, her wrapper torn, her voice trembling. The governor sat frozen, his eyes fixed on the glowing pot. What had looked like madness now carried the scent of mystery. Still in shock, Chinonso opened the pot slowly. A soft fragrance rose, sweet, rich, and deep like nothing anyone had ever smelled. The governor's curiosity broke the silence. Let me taste, he said. Chinonso bowed respectfully and dipped a calabash into the pot, handing it to him with both hands. The governor took a sip and froze. His eyes widened, his lips trembling in astonishment. He took another sip, then another. By the heavens, he whispered, this is no ordinary wine. This is the drink of gods. The crowd gasped, murmuring prayers under their breath. The governor stood to his feet, his voice carrying across the courtyard. Young man, he said, pointing to Chinonso, what I have tasted today must not remain hidden. I will build for you the greatest winery this land has ever seen. The world must drink from your pot. Cheers erupted, but Chinonso remained silent, his eyes wet with quiet gratitude. The same people who mocked him now fell to their knees, begging for forgiveness. Their laughter turned to shame. Amarachi wept openly. Her pride melted into dust as she crawled forward, clutching her chest. Forgive me, she cried. I called you mad when I should have listened. I joined them to laugh at you when I should have believed. Chinonso looked at her with calm eyes. It is not me you mocked, he said softly. It is the blessing that you refused to see. His voice was steady, but heavy with the weight of truth. Around them, others lowered their heads, unable to meet his gaze. The governor smiled and said, Tell me, Chinonso, where shall this great winery be built? I will make Ori Market the jewel of the state. But Chinonso shook his head slowly. The courtyard went silent again. No, he said, his voice deep and steady. Ori Market does not deserve it. You mocked what you did not understand. You destroyed what you should have protected. Blessings cannot dwell where envy rules the heart. Gasps spread through the crowd. Even the governor was taken aback by his firmness. Chinonso bowed and continued. Let the winery be built in the state capital, where those who see value will protect it, not destroy it. The governor nodded in respect. So shall it be, he said, clasping Chinonso's hand firmly. You have spoken with wisdom. The air felt different, lighter, sacred. It was as though the ancestors themselves nodded in approval. Weeks later, billboards with Chinonso's face and the shining image of the clay pot appeared across the land. Journalists wrote of the man whose pot made wine. Foreign investors arrived. The winery rose like a palace of prosperity, its aroma filling the city streets. Bottles labeled Umuoma wine, wine of the earth, filled every home, every celebration. Chinonso became the pride of the land, and his name was sung in songs across Nigeria. Back in Umuoma, the people watched in silence each time a truck of wine passed their market. Chinonso's former mockers hid their faces, whispering, "If only we had believed him." Amarachi no longer boasted. She walked quietly through the market, her pride gone. And the elders would tell their children, "Never mock what you don't understand, for the pot you laugh at today may hold tomorrow's blessing." Thus, the tale of Chinonso, the man who was called husband of a pot, became a story of wisdom across generations. A reminder that in life, envy blinds the heart, but faith and humility open the door to greatness. When the drums of the city faded behind him, Chinonso walked home with quiet steps, the sacred clay pot wrapped in a white cloth and cradled in his arms. The sun rose gently over the red hills of Umuoma, painting the land in the color of peace. Children ran ahead shouting, "Chinonso is back, the man who shamed the proud." Old women poured palm oil on the earth in thanksgiving. Even the wind that once mocked him now sang in his favor. And so he entered his father's compound, not as the broken man who left, but as one who had been shaped by destiny's fire. That evening, under the ancient Iroko tree, the elders gathered to honor him. The eldest among them raised his ofo staff and said, "Some men are born to fetch water, others are chosen to draw light from the deep." They offered kola nut, poured libation, and blessed the clay pot that had revealed truth. The pot glowed faintly, as if acknowledging their prayers. Women sang songs of praise, calling Chinonso Nwam Miri Nke Kaizuru, the son whom the spirits vindicated. As the songs died down, Amarachi came forward. Her once proud face was streaked with tears. Her fine cloth was replaced by plain white wrapper. She knelt in the dust before Chinonso and said softly, "I mocked what I did not understand. Forgive me." Chinonso looked at her, then at the clay pot and replied, "The pot teaches, not by anger but by truth." He helped her to her feet, and for the first time, Amarachi bowed her head, truly humbled. That night, the village danced. Drums echoed into the forest, and the fire cracked under the laughter of the people. Palm wine flowed, yam roasted on the coals, and children sang songs about the man who carried light in a pot. Even Amarachi joined the women's dance, her face calm, her pride gone. In that moment, Umuoma became one heart again. And above them, the moon watched like an ancient witness of forgiveness. Later, when the fire died and only crickets sang, Chinonso knelt before his father's shrine. The clay pot rested beside him, glowing faintly. He whispered, "Father, I did not fail." A soft breeze moved through the compound, and in its breath, he heard the quiet voice of his late father. "You have turned shame into wisdom, my son." Tears filled his eyes, but they were not of sorrow. They were the kind that water destiny's soil. In the days that followed, Chinonso gathered the children of Umuoma beneath the mango tree. He told them the story of how a simple clay pot silenced pride and restored truth. The children listened with wide eyes, their laughter mingling with the breeze. "Remember," he said, "it is not the size of your gift, but the faith you carry within it." And so, a new generation learned the value of humility and courage. Years passed. Chinonso's wine business grew, and his clay pot became the emblem of honesty and blessing. Bottles labeled Umuoma wine, the wine of truth, were sold in markets far beyond his land. He employed many from his village, giving hope to those who once doubted him. And whenever people asked the secret of his success, he smiled and said, "The pot still speaks, but only to those who listen." When night fell over Umuoma, the elders told Chinonso's tale by the fireside. They said, "Pride is a shadow that hides a man's blessing. Humility is the torch that reveals it. And whenever the evening wind blew gently through the huts, the children whispered, "That is the spirit of the man who trusted the unseen." The clay pot now sat before the family shrine, no longer just an object, but a symbol. And in the stillness of the night, its soft glow reminded all, when the heart is pure, even the wind will carry your name.